has not started yet. Hello guys, let me know if the audio is coming. I'll check it from my phone as well since no one has joined yet. Okay, the audio seems fine. Where is the comment section? Okay. Abhay Agarwal. Okay, one guy is here, so I'll start, no problem. So let other people join, and then I'll just repeat myself a little. So no problem. So today we will get into the OXFAM report. OXFAM is a commie think tank, and they have again come up with the absolute bullshit commie premises that the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, income inequality is increasing. All the stuff that held India back until 1991. All the stuff that including everyone in the Congress says. Congress sometimes likes to pretend that they are different from the rest of the commies of the country. But remember, even Mamata Banerjee is further left of Congress, further left of CPIM, which is why our state is going to the dogs. And so Congress sometimes pretends to be different from the rest of the leftists, but you have to remember that Manmohan Singh is not Congress. Everyone in the Congress has always opposed Manmohan Singh when he tried to do the reforms, when he tried to do the nuclear deal. Manmohan Singh is not Congress. Rest of the Congress is it started with a Fabian socialist prime minister. So Congress is also as commie as the rest of the leftists of the country. So Congress believes in all of these things, leftists believe in all of these things. All movies are based on these things. That is why Kanhaiya Kumar has actually no moral problem with being in Congress, because they believe in these things. Suit boot ki sarkar. They are not happy with the fact that so many people in the country can afford suit boot. They are unhappy that not everyone in the country can afford a suit boot, and they will sell people the lie that I am going to make a magical government where everyone will be able to buy suit boot, and then give excuses when that plan fails and no one in the country has even food to eat, or no one can even afford food, let alone suit and boot. And that yeah, is the volume is low? Okay, I'll increase the volume. So everyone, all of these leftists give excuses for all the leftist governments in the world that have failed and promise these exact things, that just let me tax the rich and then everything will be fine. Just let me do this once. And the moment it fails in West Bengal. The middle class runs away to Bangalore and Delhi. The upper class runs away to USA, goes there and says the same thing, that no, we tried the leftist thing in West Bengal, but that's not the problem. It failed for other magical reasons, but the plan was good. It fails in Soviet Union, it failed, but the plan was good. Venezuela, Cuba, it failed, but the plan was good. All the European countries where communism was tried and failed, the plan was good, but it fails. It's a magically mysterious plan which is always good but always fails. Okay, and remember, I have might have said this in a live stream earlier as well, that in Europe, Kazakhstan or something, or Uzbekistan, I don't remember the exact country, these places were the rice bowls of those regions. And when communists were in power, they had to go around putting up signboards in villages that, remember, it's illegal to eat your children. Okay, because people had begun to do that because there was absolutely no food, because your personal keeping personal property was against the law, because how can you keep personal property? You are not supposed to have profits. Profits is surplus, like stolen goods. They consider profit as stolen goods. You are not supposed to have profits. You are supposed to give everything away to the workers. So let's say a poor farmer has one cow. He saves up and buys 2 cows. He's growing his business. That moment he's evil, and he's immediately shot dead. So that's how people stop having food to eat. Neither they can afford to have food. And that's the same thing that happened in Mao's China. Everyone died from hunger because of those same reasons. Now, the people in Oxfam will tell you that I'm just being a paranoid person, and they don't advocate for these things because they are talking about taxing the rich and not taxing the poorest of poor farmers. But they believe in these exact same things, and the slope is slippery. Their thoughts will lead you to these things just in a few years if you let them do these things, what they're recommending now. And Abhijit Banerjee, a Nobel laureate in economics, when he comes back after winning the Nobel Prize, sits down with Shekhar Gupta. We will get into Shekhar Gupta's reaction to this. I watched a first 1 or 2 minutes, and Shekhar Gupta, since he's at the end of the day a libertarian economically, so he does not support BJP on culture. He does not support BJP on the vastly socialist things that BJP has done, so much free stuff and etc. But the privatization drives that BJP did, Shekhar Gupta supports these things 100%. Shekhar Gupta supports is good friends with Sanjeev Sanyal. So Shekhar Gupta has absolutely ripped apart this Oxfam report. I saw the first 1 or 2 minutes. We will react to that live. So Shekhar Gupta had interviewed Abhijit Banerjee when he came back from winning the Nobel Prize, and he asked him jokingly that are you a leftist or a capitalist or something. Abhijit Banerjee clarifies only one thing, that if you think taxing the richest is a great thing as much as possible, then yes, I'm a leftist. And see Abhijit Banerjee, how out of touch he is. He has studied in a free college, Presidency College. He has studied in a free university. He has done his PhD in a publicly paid university in the USA. And right now he has never done a job for salary. He has never been hired by someone that, hey, I think you are good at this job, do this particular job and then take some money on as compensation, which is what Sanjeev Sanyal has done. He was the global strategist for Deutsche Bank, the biggest European bank. And that's why Abhijit Banerjee does not understand that when you tax rich people as much as you want, rich people have the luxury to move to somewhere else. They can move their business to somewhere else. California is facing that same thing today. West Bengal has seen that forever. Indian business have seen that thing forever. If you read Thomas Sowell's books, Thomas Sowell writes pages after pages about India, how Indian businessmen did more business in Southeast Asia, shifted their production to Southeast Asia, even birlas. So and we will have to get into another we will have to bust some myths before we get into the report, that income inequality, complaining about income inequality, rising inequality is a hoax. Income inequality will obviously be there because I can't be expected to have the same income as someone who hires me, or someone who has 20 years more experience than me, or someone who does the work which matters 20 times more. Secondly, what they are talking about here is not income inequality, it's just inequality. Thirdly, they don't get into defining what wealth is, because the report from the beginning to the end is about rising wealth inequality, okay? And the problem with that is wealth takes into account the net worth of a person, and the net worth of a person is not money in the bank or money being hidden in the almirah of a person. Money is the stocks of the company of the person who is the billionaire, or the common person. And so many people are investing in these companies, especially in India in the last 4 or 5 years, because of so many YouTubers who are teaching finance and money management. That's why the wealth of people like Adani and the net worth of these people have increased. They keep pretending that wealth is income. They keep pretending wealth is Adani's $46 billion is residing in his bank or inside his house. They don't get the difference between income and wealth. And secondly, inequality will always be there, and inequality will rise when the nation's general economic prosperity rises. For example, you can't have equally rich people all around the country. You can't have everyone in the country being Elon Musk. You can only have equal poverty, but that too for the 99%. Remember, the 1% will be rich, or 0.1% will be rich, even when the rest of the country is socialist and communist. No country in the history of mankind has managed absolute equality. And when they have tried absolute equality, what they have done is about the creme de la creme, the 0.001% of the country is at the end of the day rich, because even before 1991, Bajaj was still rich, Tata was still rich, Congress Party, Nehru, Indira Gandhi, they never suffered for food. It was the rest of the entire country who were standing in queues, standing for licenses, giving bribes, having no jobs. But they were trying a socialist experiment. That we are not going to let people have big profits and stuff. We are going to have equality. But now we have more income inequality than earlier, because people are getting richer. We have more billionaires now, and what happens as a result of that is, from everyone, from the top to the bottom, everyone's economic prosperity also increases, but the inequality also increases. And the inequality, you will be complaining about the inequality at the end of the day, and at the end of the day, only if you are jealous of Adani's wealth, because you will be ignoring that your condition has also improved. Because this is what happens. Imagine this is equality. Everyone is equally poor, and then inequality happens. Everyone's condition improves, but someone's condition improves more than others. Let's say I have spoken about USA's poor as well before in live streams. What's the life of an American poor person? He has a bad car. Instead of driving a Tesla, he drives a bad looking car. Instead of the best AC in the world, he has a bad AC. Instead of the best heater in the world, he has a bad heater. Instead of the best TV in the world, he has a bad TV. Instead of a mansion, he lives in a 2-story bad house. That's the poor of USA. And look at the poor of India. So the only thing we should be bothered about is whether there is generational social mobility when we are pretending to have great capitalism in the country. It's not like we should have such a system that only Adani and all get rich and we still keep remaining poor. That should not happen, and that's not happening. That's not something that has happened since 1991. If the father had no opportunity other than driving a rickshaw, his son should have more opportunities. Then his grandson should have more opportunities. That's how capitalism works, and that's actually what has happened in USA. That is also what's happening in India. So let's see if any comment has come. Okay, now let's get into OXFAM's reports. This is a different report. You guys can see the screen, right? तो पहले ये मजाक का चीज़ देख लो. Extreme inequality in numbers. First thing I wanted to point out is, look at this person, Professor Himanshu of Jawaharlal Nehru University. The university which is named after a Fabian socialist. He will obviously be a socialist. कैसे को हम पैसे दे रहे हैं प्रोफेसर बनने के लिए. Okay, so the system that gives you equality of opportunity, or at least heading towards equality of opportunity, or at least heading towards more and more opportunities every day. Okay, they want to break this system down of opportunities with the fake promises of equality of outcome. That's their thing. भाई अदानी का debt to equity ratio देखना, it's almost worrying situation. Yes, people who are buying shares of Adani, a lot of whom are also not even BJP supporters, they just are hyped up about Adani's company for no reason. I would not buy Adani's shares, like I have said in past live streams. Debt to equity ratio. What is particularly worrying in India's case is that economic inequality is being added to society that is already fractured along the lines of caste, religion, region and gender. Okay, look at this moron. तो fractured along lines of caste तो ठीक है, JNU वालों का तो ये तो basic bread and butter है. Fractured along the lines of religion, because of whom? Which religion in India does not accept other religions? Divided on the basis of region. Yes, who supports regionalism and regional power, regional random Kshatrap governments saying that yes, we need to have Bangla Pakho, gender. That's his bread and butter. Now let's check out this Professor Himanshu. Guess what he is the professor of? हाँ, सब कुछ में ही कास्ट है. JNU का पेज खोलने में इतना टाइम लगता है. हाँ, क्वालिफिकेशंस PhD इन इकोनॉमिक्स, यहाँ से ही PhD कर लिया है. पॉवर्टी इनइक्वालिटी, तो इसका प्रेमिस है कि इनइक्वालिटी इज़ अ बैड थिंग. दैट्स हाउ यू नो दैट ही डज नॉट अंडरस्टैंड एनीथिंग अबाउट इकोनॉमिक्स. Center for Economic Studies and Planning. Remember, planning from top-down planning is a bad thing to begin with. The Nehruvian governments or all subsequent Congress governments, one of the reasons they failed was because they were doing top-down plannings, 5-year plans. The world changes in 1 year. They have 5-year plans in place. And why is that? How is that bad? Especially because you are taxing people so much to give people free stuff. So, for example, I have a spectacle and I made this for $50. I can either sell it to you for $100, or a government can come and tell you that they want to give you this for free. So there's no way in hell I am going to charge anything less, because otherwise I won't do business. I did not get into the spectacle business for fun. I did not like making spectacles. If I can't sell, if I can't have profits, or if I can't have any earnings for making a spectacle, I won't make spectacles, or I'll go to a country where there are opportunities of making spectacles. Okay. So anyway, so the government will buy the spectacle from me at 50 rupees, but it wants to give it to you for free. Okay, remember? So how is that 50 rupees going to come from your taxes? But you are going to think that you are getting it for free. Then they are going to hire bureaucrats who are going to do the paperwork, who are going to go to your house and deliver that product. So unka salary kahan se aayega? So at the end of the day, to the society, what does that spectacle cost? About 120, 130 rupees. So with the hope of getting free spectacle, what you could have paid 100, you end up paying 130. And in most cases actually much more, because there are so many bureaucracies, so many ways to corrupt a bureaucracy. So you'll have to pay all their salaries, and you'll have to pay for the spectacle from your taxes. This is why free stuff is bad. Nobel Prize is usually most of the years. I have seen some Nobel Prizes. I have seen the details of some of the Nobel laureates. They usually toe the line. They try to set a balance. One Nobel Prize actually, if two economics guys win a Nobel in any year, one of them will be these kind of commie people. One guy will be a little more pro market. And besides, any award, not just Nobel, no award ceremonies are performed by gods. Every award ceremony is about clout and keeping a lot of other politics in mind. That okay, person of color, and then it's your friends who are the judges, who are the jury, not God. No unbiased person can be the jury. And since it's such a agreed upon concept that inequality is bad, inequality is rising in India, which already has caste problems. So as whoever researches on those things, Abhijit Banerjee's main research is on poverty. Poverty is rising. So obviously he'll get a Nobel. PhD in Economics, Center for Studies. Okay. Let's look at some of the fun things here. So OXFAM is famous for getting into or bringing out really shocking headlines. The top 10% of the Indian population holds 77% of the total national wealth. Wealth क्या है? Which includes net worth. Net worth meaning share market में उसके कंपनी का शेयर कितना उठा है. 73% of the wealth generated in 2017 went to the richest 1%, while 670 million Indians, who comprise the poorest half of the population, saw only a 1% increase in their wealth. But they are mysteriously not talking about income. Income बढ़ा कि कम हुआ है since 2017, OXFAM. There are 119 billionaires in India. So having billionaires is obviously bad, remember. But we have 119 billionaires now. And how many billionaires did we have before 1991? Let's check that. And then we can conclude that whether the country was better when we had less billionaires, or the country is better now when we have more billionaires. How many billionaires did India have before 1991? There was one PIO billionaire in 1991. What's a PIO billionaire? Manmohan Singh gets a little too much credit for these things. Who was the billionaire before 1991? In 1996 there were 3. Okay? So is India more prosperous now with 119 billionaires, or India was more prosperous in 1996? तो क्या रहस्य है यहाँ पे? Why is having more billionaires in the country making the country more prosperous? इनकम का बात क्यों नहीं हो रहा है, सिर्फ वेल्थ का बात क्यों हो रहा है? कहाँ मिलेगा? Who? Yeah, there was one PIO billionaire in 1991. So 1 billionaire in 1991. Okay, let's get here. Billionaires' fortunes. Oh, okay. Now, until now we were talking about at least wealth, which is more of a concrete term. Now it's fortunes. Billionaires' fortunes increased by almost 10 times over a decade because people invested in their companies more in the last decade. And their total wealth is higher than the entire union budget of India for the fiscal year of 2018-19, which was at 24,422 billion. Many ordinary Indians are not able to access the healthcare they need. Many ordinary Indians. Who is this many ordinary Indians? What is a number of them? 63 million of them are pushed into poverty because of healthcare costs every year. Almost 2 people every second. Okay, so free government hospitals are not working for them. It would take 941 years for a minimum wage worker in rural India to earn what the top paid executive at a leading Indian government company earns in a year. Why would a minimum wage worker even hope to or even should be getting what a top paid executive at a leading garment company earns in a year? Why is even this a premise? Anirban Bhattacharya को कितना promote, एक minute, I'll read a comment. अनिर्बान भट्टाचार्य को कितना प्रमोट कर रहे हैं ये लोग अवार्ड फंक्शन में. आपने देखा एक्सट्रीमिस्ट लेफ्टिस्ट है वो. एवरी लेफ्टिस्ट इज़ नॉट हिंदूफोबिक बट ही इज़. आई हैव नो आइडिया हु अनिर्बान भट्टाचार्य इज़. कौन है ये अनिर्बान भट्टा? ओ दिस अनिर्बान भट्टाचार्य. या ही इज़ हिंदूफोबिक. ही इज़ वेरी इरिटेटिंग. ओके, नाउ दिस इज़ अ फनी पार्ट. तो एक खराब गरीब बैड गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल का एग्जाम्पल दिया. कहाँ से? बिहार से, which is the most corrupt and poorest state in the country, not even run by the government. But okay, this is not entirely an anti-BJP stance. This is just anti-common sense article. तो ठीक है, तो बिहार मिला इनको. प्रतिमा 32-year-old lives in the city of Patna. तो बार बार बिहार मिल रहा है इनको. बिहार में एज इफ बिलियनियर है बहुत. ठीक है, अदानी का जो बिलियंस आया है वो इन लोगों का पैसा खा के आया है, according to OXFAM. Get involved and fight inequality today. Join the campaign. Now, ये डोनेशन कौन देगा? डोनेशन हम देंगे 10-20 रुपए. तुम कितना डोनेशन दोगे? डोनेशन तो अदानी देगा. OXFAM runs on the money of the rich, on money of the poor. I mean money of the billionaires. But that is at least consensual and voluntary donations. I have no problem with voluntary donations. India is the land of donations. Because you see, all those keto.org and all, they run very well, and I am very much against donations in India because I am paying so much taxes for free stuff in India. On top of that, I can't be giving donations all the time. It can happen in USA. USA has a strong social security net, but on top of that, there are churches, there are people all the time. Everyone in USA almost is creating one foundation, this foundation, that foundation, or the other every day to help someone out. Because they don't have so much free stuff as in India. But Indians who are already paying for almost everything free, on top of that they are running big donation organizations like keto.org. So हम तो दान करने के लिए बैठे हैं, फिर भी Oxfam को चाहिए forcing people like Adani and Ambani to pay so much taxes that they stop hiring people, or they move their businesses, or they close down their businesses. Okay, this is the survival of the richest report that is the topic of our discussion today. This is the paper. This is what we will discuss now. Okay, one comment has come. Gujarat is one of the most developed states of India. Many billionaires come from there. Yeah, and mysteriously, Gujarat seems to be pretty prosperous. Gujarat seems to run pretty well. And even Delhi. People think Arvind Kejriwal's free stuff model is working great. Why? Magically. People will tell you that, okay, Venezuela didn't work, California, West Bengal didn't work, Soviet Union didn't work, but California is working, Delhi is working, Nordic countries' free stuff are working. Why? Because rich people live there. Every rich person in India is located in, a lot of them are located in Delhi. Their taxes go to Arvind Kejriwal in some way or the other, some way or the other. It's not like Arvind Kejriwal doesn't get any taxes. Same for California. Elon Musk might have gotten pissed off. Joe Rogan might have gotten pissed off with California governments and moved to Texas. And California lost out a lot because of that. But other than that, the entire Silicon Valley is in California. That's why they can pretend to play communists all the time. तो अब ऑक्सफैम का पेपर देखो. Tax billionaires, not workers. ठीक है, तो कोई आदमी क्यों बिलियनियर बनेगा अगर सिर्फ टैक्स ही देना उनको. तो इट स्टार्ट्स विथ एन अफ्रीकन वुमन. तो अफ्रीका, दिस इज फ्रॉम केनिया. ओके, कैन यू रीड दिस? Sainab heads to the dam to fetch water in Isiolo County, Kenya. So it's a sad story of Kenya. अब देखो केनिया में कितने बिलियनियर्स हैं. How many billionaires in Kenya? There are also 240 billion, $10 million, 11 centimillionaires. So there are actually no billionaires. There are a lot of millionaires but no billionaires in Kenya. So they are setting the premise of a sad story from a country which actually does not have billionaires. So इनका inequality क्यों है? इनका भला क्यों नहीं हो रहा है? If there are no billionaires, there should be nice parity and parity in wealth. सब equality में रहेंगे केनिया में. Billionaires तो नहीं है. Jose Antonio Ocampo, Minister of Finance and Public Credit, Colombia. तो इन्होंने बड़ा कुछ तीर मारा है in terms of taxing the rich. तो and now India is supposed to learn from Colombia. That is the recommendation. Colombia का economic prosperity से हमको सीखना है. Latin American countries who are forever poor. Can you believe that? What's the difference between India and Brazil or Argentina? Population is same, the climate is same. The only difference is that people in Argentina and Brazil still go around having Che Guevara tattooed in their arms, and they are perpetually poor. Look at the GDP growth rate of Argentina. Even though their inflation is, even though their per capita income is so much higher, that doesn't even matter because their inflation is that much higher. So I'll explain this a little. That let's say if an anti-India, let's say an anti-national guy tells you that Argentina is a better country than India because their per capita GDP is better than us. So why that does not matter, because if in Argentina, because that's not adjusted for inflation. In Argentina, if someone earns $9,000 in the month, they may be I'm giving a rough example. They maybe buy a water bottle for $10,000 or $5,000. That's the way super high inflation works. That's also what's going to happen in Pakistan very soon. And that kind of inflation happens because of commie governments again. Because remember, even stuff like DA, these stuff create inflation a lot. How does this inflation happen? When you make compulsory levels of salary, or put price ceilings from the socialist government. Let's say I hire you and I pay you 50 rupees. Government comes and tells me that no, I have to pay you 100 rupees. Fine, I'll pay you 100 rupees. Immediately the next day, the companies who were making the products that they were selling to you for 20 rupees, 40 rupees, 30 rupees, they will all increase their prices because they know that this guy is now getting earned. This guy is now earning 100 rupees, and I, as a person who will have to pay you 100 rupees, I will either hire less people or increase the price of my products also. The very job I'm hiring you for, the job of making something, whether it's a B2B or B2C, I will increase the price of my products. Where else will I get the 100 rupees to pay you? Okay? Or I will do both. I will hire less and also increase the price of my products, or I'll simply move away to another place. Because remember, even when India was poor, the Congress family was not poor. Bajaj were not poor. Tata were not poor. Even when Kenya or Sudan is poor, they do have a rich class who studies outside the country. Bangladesh has forever had a class who always went to England to study, or USA. So Argentina GDP growth rate. Yeah, देखो 1970. Look at this. The blue part is Argentina. 2017 में क्या ग्रोथ रेट है, फिर यहाँ पे आ गया 2020 में, फिर यहाँ पे GDP हम्म 2020 से 21 में अभी बड़ा मज़ा आया है इनको, मगर उससे पहले देखो 2016 में -2.1%. इसका मतलब है जीडीपी कम हो गया, ग्रोथ रेट कम. जीडीपी कम नहीं हुआ, ग्रोथ रेट माइनस में जा रहा है. 2014 में माइनस में गया. दिस इज द स्टोरी ऑफ ऑल लैटिन अमेरिकन कंट्रीज, बट दे वांट टू ऑक्सफैम वांट्स अस टू लर्न फ्रॉम दीज कंट्रीज नाउ. सर्वाइवल ऑफ द रिचेस्ट. चलो कुछ हेडलाइंस पढ़ते हैं. ओके, one comment has come. The message of Hinduism is a universal. The message of BJP or RSS is not, especially the conservatives. That's a big problem. You will have to elaborate a little. And what is the meaning of BJP or RSS? The message of BJP or RSS being universal. Why does the message of a political party have to be universal? Political party is here to earn votes and run the country. They are not a religion. You are comparing a political party with a religion. That does not make sense. Abhay Agarwal, there is parity in poverty though. Yes, poverty में parity हर वक्त होगा. Since 2020, the richest 1% have captured almost 2/3 of all new wealth. फिर से wealth, not income. Income किसी का बढ़ रहा है कि नहीं, ये कोई नहीं बोल रहा है. Nearly twice as much money as the bottom 99% of the world's population. World's population तो बात ही मत करो, क्योंकि इन वर्ल्ड में ऐसे भी कंट्रीज हैं जहाँ पे कोई बिलियनर्स है ही नहीं. तो वाई आर दोज कंट्रीज फॉल्टरिंग? द प्रॉब्लम इज बिलियनर्स, राइट? तो बिलियनर फॉर्चून्स आर इंक्रीजिंग बाय $2.7 billion a day. Yes, that's how share market works. Even as inflation outpaces the wages of at least 1.7 billion workers, more than the population of India. अभी इंडिया पे आया है. अभी इन्फ्लेशन किस लिए हो रहा है? Inflation happens because of things like DA. Inflation, what we just discussed. Inflation happens because you set a minimum wage that itna salary dena hi hai. And a lot of the world's inflation has happened because of USA, because they were printing so much money to counter their trade deficit with China, like what Roman Empire under Emperor Vespasian tried to do. And Pliny the Elder was complaining about that we have so much trade deficit with India. That is what today USA faces with China, we face with China. So we are buying all their products, but they are not buying our products as much. So to counter that, USA has been printing so much money, and that's how the inflation, so much inflation has been happening for the last 10-20 years. On top of that, during the coronavirus pandemic, they increased the inflation by having stimulus packages, which India consciously did not do, which is why our inflation did not increase as much as USA's. India's inflation is probably in the best position among all the countries today. Revive Sanskrit. Yes, Sanskrit में economics पढ़ो. That would be great. We would actually learn Arthashastra from the horse's mouth. Food and energy companies more than doubled their profits in 2022. प्रॉफिट क्यों किया? सी द प्रेमिसेस. प्रॉफिट्स क्यों डबल हुआ रे? पेइंग आउट $257 billion टू वेल्थी शेयर होल्डर्स. तो वेल्थी शेयर होल्डर्स को पे आउट दिया, गरीब शेयर होल्डर्स को पे आउट नहीं दिया. वाइल ओवर 800 million people went to bed hungry. क्या कंपेरिजन है ये? दे आर कंपेयरिंग शेयर होल्डर्स which includes the middle class and the wealthy, comparing them randomly with poor people who went to bed hungry. And again, to question their premise, are more people going to bed hungry today than when we didn't have these food and energy companies making profits, or not? Only 4 cents in every dollar of tax revenue. Statistical fallacies ka zindagi hai inka. Only 4 cents in every dollar of tax revenue comes from wealth taxes. Wealth should not be taxed. Corporate companies should not be taxed, because wealth is not money in the bank. What is my potential to have money in the bank is not the same as actually having money in the bank. Only 4 cents in every dollar of tax revenue comes from wealth taxes. They are not talking about income, remember? They are still going on talking about wealth. And half the world's billionaires live in countries with no inheritance tax on money to give to their children. Inheritance tax bhi chahiye to I work all my life, I want to give some money to my kids. Not happening. A tax of up to 5% on the world's multimillionaires and billionaires, अच्छा अभी millionaire पे भी आ गया, could raise $1.7 trillion a year. Could raise जो $1.7 trillion है. This controversy was going on when Elon Musk was buying Twitter. Remember, everyone was saying that you could solve world hunger with all this money. So he said, yeah, I paid that much in taxes last year. कहाँ का hunger solve हुआ? And then people were saying that, okay, now he paid that money to Twitter, right? Let the people who got that money in Twitter, the creators of Twitter, the board members of Twitter, let them come together and solve world hunger. If you think that just throwing money will solve world hunger, because world hunger is not happening today because of lack of food or poverty. World hunger is happening because of blockades, political civil wars. World hunger. तो ये world hunger सॉल्व हो जाएगा 1.7 ट्रिलियन डॉलर में, ये इनका मानना है. बट हाउ? बट रिमेंबर, ये 1.7 ट्रिलियन डॉलर जो रेज होगा वो जाएगा ब्यूरोक्रेट्स के पास, एनजीओज के पास, थिंक टैंक्स के पास, फिर वो पहुंचेगा ग्राउंड लेवल पे. तो तब वो 1.7 ट्रिलियन डॉलर से they won't be buying food worth 1.7 trillion dollars. Remember that, because of the example I gave of my spectacles. The food that is being produced worth 1.7 trillion dollars, it will be sent to people through bureaucrats or different organizations or different people who will charge money for handling that food, and then that food will reach people. Enough tax of about 5% on the world's multimillionaires and billionaires could raise $1.7 trillion a year, enough to lift 2 billion people out of poverty. So 2 billion people out of poverty tax करके होगा. So then tell us OXFAM, that how are people rising out of poverty with the rise of billionaires? Like we are going to repeatedly ask OXFAM today. No, it's not like OXFAM is watching this video, but my basic point that is India better off today with 119 billionaires than 1996 when it had 3 billionaires? Is Kenya a great country because it has no billionaires? What's the point about billionaires? तो बिलियनर्स जब कोई देश में हो रहा है तब वो देश का इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी खुद से ही कैसे बढ़ रहा है. तो और अगर वैसे बढ़ ही रहा है, why do you need to kill the wealth of those billionaires or the income of those billionaires or the companies of those billionaires and pretend and promise to lift people out of poverty? And why hasn't these plans ever worked in places like West Bengal, Soviet Union, Venezuela, Cuba? Let's see if there are some comments. No name, Bhik Mango sab. Dumil family killed real Tamil bhasha also. Bhik Mango sab. দাদা প্রণাম, এখন সৃজিত দত্তার ভিডিও রামমোহনকে নিয়ে দেখছিলাম সঙ্গম টক্সে, প্লিজ সময় পেলে দেখবে. সৃজিত দত্তা কে জানো, ভুলে গেছি. দেবজ্যোতি সাধু, as they want from Tamil Nadu. Okay. Yeah, today we'll discuss only economics. No name wrote something and then deleted. Okay, an age of crisis causing huge suffering for most of humanity. Yes, humanity is now suffering. Humanity was not suffering before 1991, or Americans are suffering now, I guess. Americans were not suffering when they didn't have any billionaires before 1945. कभी इंडिया का बात बोल रहा है, कभी वर्ल्ड का बात बोल रहा है. an age of crisis, creating huge fortunes for a tiny few. Now fortunes, not even wealth, not even income, randomly a word called fortunes. Ye literature, see the problem with these people, these economics people who are basically commies, is that they hire people with good English language sense and good English literature, people who should have been writing scripts for movies and stuff and stories. They write these emotional sentences and they think they are writing a technical paper on economics. The richest 1% gained about 63% of new wealth created between 2020 and 2021. So, first of all, wealth creation does not mean taking someone else's money to become rich, okay? And when wealth creation happens, a lot of that is net worth based on the company's shares. And wealth creation also involves lifting the entire country out of poverty, just like it's happening in India. The entire country's prosperity increases. Decide, OXFAM, that whether you are talking about inequality or just going to complain about people becoming too rich. Many economists say that increasing repo rate is a bad idea to defeat inflation. What do you think? Please check my previous comment. Your previous comment is deleted. Message retracted is showing. It sounds like written melodrama. Yes, all economics papers are by commies are written melodrama. Inflation, defeating inflation is not a tough thing. Like Abhijit Banerjee had recommended Indian government to print more money to fight inflation. This guy has won the Nobel Prize, remember. So inflation will go away tomorrow if you just stop paying DAs and stop taking taxes for DAs. Another way how this government prevented further inflation was when they did not set the price limit for petrol when petrol prices were increasing sky high. And how? Because if you had decreased the price of petrol artificially, that is from your taxes, if it was decreased that way, what Pakistan did, what Pakistan does even today, then you would not taper your demand for petrol. Because the government did not decrease the price of petrol, you went out of your house less, or you paid more for the petrol. That's how you don't create artificial demand for things, and that's how you don't create artificial that's how you don't create pointless inflation. फिर से मैसेज रिट्रैक्ट हो गया, नो नेम. ओ, अभय अग्रवाल का रिट्रैक्ट हो गया. See this. Nobel laureate, India should print money liberally and transfer cash to the sections of the society. Yeah. Print money to support expenditure. And see, what do you think? This would have created the same kinds of inflation or as other countries or not? Can you believe this guy has a Nobel Prize? Okay, paper में देखते हैं. The bottom 99% gained 37% of new wealth created between 22 and 2021. Now, ये गलती से थोड़ा अच्छा बात बोल दिया. तो इनका पॉइंट है कि 1% को 63% काहे मिला. But while they don't want you to, or since they are good at literature, they want you to feel really bad about this, that the bottom 99% gained only 37%. But remember the number of people. 99% obviously includes more people. All of them gain 37% of new wealth, and the 1% which comprises way less numbers of people, they gain 63%. Okay, so either you be jealous and pissed off about this, or you defeat this system which creates the 1% who gets the 63%, and in return you don't even have the 99% who will get the 37% rise in their wealth. That's how economics works. Unless you live in a protected and coddled environment like a university campus where you don't ever do a job, you study in a free college, free university, and research for free, and give lectures in universities instead of actually creating wealth for anyone. The bottom 90% gained 10% of new wealth created between 2020 and 21. लो, wealth gain हो रहा है, उससे भी problem है. which the bottom 90% were not gaining as much wealth before the billionaires started gaining so much wealth. Amartya Sen niye ki mone hoy? Amartya Sen niye, he's asking in Bengali that what do I think of Amartya Sen? Amartya Sen, I obviously don't agree with any of his policies, but BJP government actually likes Amartya Sen more than I do. All of the free stuff that BJP is doing, these are basically what Amartya Sen had recommended all his life, the same very way. And now Amartya Sen pretends that just because BJP wins elections, all of a sudden election khatre mein hai, dar ka mahol hai, democracy is at risk. The moment someone Amartya Sen doesn't like wins elections, he thinks the election system has gone haywire. But the government is doing everything that Amartya Sen recommended all his life. Now let's get to more of the paper. Billionaires have seen huge gains during pandemic. Gains, see, more ambiguous words. Not income, not wealth, not even fortunes now. Gains. Gains of what? More gains during pandemic. Because of what? Because remember during the lockdowns, when anyone who talked against lockdowns, even especially in the USA, because people are more financially and economically aware, people were saying that let small businesses remain open. You are letting only Amazon, Walmart remain open. It's going to kill small businesses. That's why people started using Amazon more, and small businesses got decimated. And that is how the huge gains during the pandemic happened. And these commies were the biggest defenders of lockdowns. They were calling anyone who was opposed to lockdowns Nazis and fascists, etc. A flood of public money pumped into the economy by rich countries, which was necessary to support their populations, also drove up asset prices and wealth at the top. This meant that in the absence of progressive taxation, the super rich pocketed unprecedented fortunes. Dekho, this is the language of someone who has done graduation in English literature, not economics. Or if commie economists write like this, you know that they know English literature more than they know economics. Thomas Sowell would actually faint and puke if he read this report. तो प्रोग्रेसिव टैक्सेशन करो, उनको देश से भगाओ, उनका बिजनेस बंद कर दो, या बिजनेस भी किसी दूसरे जगह पे भेज दो, तब इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी बढ़ेगा बॉटम 99% का. Although billionaire fortunes have fallen slightly since their peak in 2021, I wonder why. They remain trillions of dollars higher than before the pandemic. Yes, because people bought shares and the big businesses profited more than small businesses who were basically decimated because of the lockdowns. Because remember, who is the biggest loser when socialists or communists come to power? It's people like you and me, or people who are poorer than us. Because also something what Abhijit Banerjee doesn't understand is that when he says that rich people should be taxed as much as possible, rich people have the freedom to move to a different place. You and I can't move to a different place. Or yes, I'm in the middle class, so I can move to a different state at least. But people who are poorer, like West Bengal, the poorest of the poor are moving to Gujarat to work as manual laborers, and some are moving to Saudi, and the middle class and the upper middle class are going to Delhi and Bangalore to do jobs, and even people who are even richer than that are going to USA. So everyone will keep leaving the state, and those who will be left behind will be the biggest losers. Because Abhijit Banerjee doesn't understand that the business itself will move. If you tax a rich person as much as you want progressively, they can move. Let's see if some comments have come. No name. Maybe Abhijit Banerjee say this money printing in other contexts. This is just basic economics. Did you think he doesn't know that? How is it possible? How do you think Amartya Sen thinks BJP government BJP winning elections means that election system has broken down? How do you think that happens? Because of the inherent hatred for anything remotely right wing. Because they are hardcore commies at heart. I know you are trying to troll me really hard, but you are failing at this. Nihilist trader like Kerala and West Bengal. Yes. Although billionaire, okay, let's see some more graphs. Increase in billionaire wealth 1987 to 2022. So No Name, the guy No Name, Remember, the argument that you made right now is what hardcore Modi bhakts make. At the end of the day, if you can't defend a position, just say, उन्होंने किया होगा तो कुछ सोच समझ के ही किया होगा. That's the argument you are making. If a Nobel laureate, if Abhijit Banerjee is saying कुछ सोच के ही बोला होगा, that's your blind faith in him. I don't have a blind faith in a fucking commie. Every billionaire is a policy failure. Yes, every billionaire is a policy failure. That's why mysteriously when billionaires start appearing in the country's economic prosperity increases. So maybe even the increase in the country's economic prosperity is a policy failure according to OXFAM. भांजे हेल्थ कैसी है? Oh, fever थोड़ा आ रहा है जा रहा है. And what are your thoughts on Modi ji bringing woke Harvard to Bharat? Oh my God, he does not get this. I thank God for Rajiv Malhotra. In IIT Bombay is held by Zainab Javed Patel on transgender people. They are going for policy changes. Yeah, see, a lot of Indian right wingers think we are being supportive of transgender rights. I have no problem with transgender rights, but their politics. The only problem with them that I have is that they are allied with all wrong people, all commies, and people who want to break India, and people who want to kill Nupur Sharma. That's my only problem with these transgender folk. Ashank Desai Center for Policy Studies, IIT Bombay. Even NCRT is including gender neutral uniforms. That should not be done. Safe washrooms. BJP unaware or master stroke. BJP is absolutely unaware on this. Appeal to authority. Yeah. Banerjee ने बोला है तो सोच समझ के ही बोला होगा. So every billionaire is a policy failure, even though the country's wealth increases with the number of billionaires in the country. Okay, so that's a policy failure according to OXFAM. The other side of the mountain. 2 scenarios for billionaire wealth between now and 2030. Billionaire wealth up to 2030. This is the green part. If current trends continue, remember who are going to be the biggest beneficiaries of this? Us, you and me. And this is what Oxfam is recommending. Billionaire wealth if it is reduced back to levels seen a decade ago. And who is going to face the brunt of this red part of the graph? Look how stupid Oxfam is. Oh, अच्छा जहाज का तस्वीर दिया है तो कुछ बुरा ही होगा. Oh, billionaires have yachts. Oh my God. In rich countries, falling rates of tax on the rich have coincided with a rising share of income going to the top 1%. Share of income, not actual income. Share of income का बात कर रहा है अभी. Or falling tax. Do you know what they mean by falling tax rates? Not income tax. They are talking about falling corporate tax, and I think corporate taxes should not exist, because what do you pay a company, pay the government taxes for? Free stuff and creating jobs. And people will tell you that governments and politicians will tell you that at least creating jobs is their first priority. So a corporate company from the CEO to chaprasi, everyone who is already paying income taxes, everyone who is already paying taxes through GST by buying stuff and then creating the job, that company as a company should also pay taxes to the government to again create jobs. How does that make sense? Top personal income tax rates for the rich. Income tax rates seem to be very low, because they have different ways of saving their income tax, because they have so many ways to what's the term used, that you do these things and you don't have to pay income tax, because that thing you are doing to not pay that income tax, that also goes to the government and goes to the system, goes inside the system in helping people get free stuff. And that's what rich people do more than anyone else. And also they sell shares. That's what Elon Musk did. He was selling shares when the time for paying taxes had come. So who was buying those shares? Latin America. यहाँ पे तो इंडिया है ही नहीं. Survival of the. Okay, now let's read some more cool English literature headlines. Okay, one comment has come. Let me check it. Hello Dada. Now that we have been able to see likes of Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Gandhi etc. being exposed, isn't it high time that we actively look into each other, into other such historical figures and start to slowly disown them? हाँ, वो तो है ही, but it's not like this Raja Ram Mohan Roy and things about Ram Mohan Roy and Gandhi is mainstream knowledge. Let it become mainstream knowledge first. I'm not trying to troll you, brother. What are you saying? I support you from the very fast. Check yourself is very important, bhai. I love you, bhai. Yeah, good, but I guess on economics, you are a little further to the left, and that's what I can't stand, because leftists have been holding this country back more than anyone. And reports like OXFAM's are as dangerous to India as someone asking for a separate Kashmir and separate Northeast for themselves. Zomato से मोमोज मंगवाया था, साला 9 rupees GST लगा. Yes, and then you are supposed to pay corporate tax if you start a company as well. That GST is going to go to the government for creating roads and free stuff. For every $1 raised in tax, only 4 cents comes from taxes on wealth. Again, फिर से वही wealth पे वापस आ गया, not income. The failure to tax wealth is most pronounced in low and middle income countries where inequality is highest. Okay, see, in the sentence itself, they kind of give it away. They kind of give the spoiler. What they didn't want to say, they said it in the sentence itself. The failure to tax wealth is most pronounced in low and middle income countries. Why is that? Because the middle income and low income countries have realized how to become more economically prosperous. We were stupid earlier. We were stupid before 1991. We are not stupid anymore. That's why we have decided we are not going to tax in stupid ways, so that the economic prosperity of the country increases. Where inequality is highest? Inequality is highest. Firstly, because inequality used to be highest because every 99.9% of the country was not even getting food to eat and electricity, while Tata, Bajaj and Congress were the only rich people in the country. And now the income inequality seems to rise because even though more people have joined the so-called rich class, but even though the poorest of the poor and the semi-poor and the middle class, their facilities are getting better every day, but Oxfam is bothered about the inequality between those people. Oxfam is only bothered that why isn't everyone in the country roaming around with a Tesla. Any new book recommendation? Not really, not in Indic circles. What am I reading? I'm reading India, Bharat, Pakistan, the Manusmriti, Bengali Rigveda, Bangali Itihash, a Bengali book on Bengalis history. What's this book? The Life Divine by Aurobindo. If you can understand it, you have to read it very slowly. It's in too much of a tough language. And I'm reading, what's this book? Oh, that is India, that's Bharat. And then I'm reading a Bengali book on the history of worshipping of Ram in Bengal. What do you think about microfinancing? Do you agree with Abhijit and Mitra about economics? Yes, I agree more with Abhijit and Mitra on economics. And microfinancing actually, see, the problem with at least not communist, but at least things like microfinancing and at least somewhat socialist policies like microfinancing. Even Abhijit Banerjee is in favor of microfinancing stuff. That these things will only work when people with good intentions and honesty are in power. See all the free stuff that Yogi Adityanath plans to do. See all the free stuff that Narendra Modi is doing. What happens when these people go out of power and corrupt people come back to power, who have no personal love for the land? That's my problem with socialist policies, and that's exactly opposite of what free market countries have in place. Their systems are not dependent on a good and nice honest person coming to power. A bad person is bad no matter what, but if the system is dependent upon a good person's intentions giving free stuff to people, that's a problem. जब bad person आएगा तो वहाँ का corruption double हो जाएगा, like what we had until now. 2/3 of countries do not have any form of inheritance tax on wealth and assets passed to direct descendants. Half of the world's billionaires now live in countries with no such tax, meaning $5 trillion will be passed on tax free to the next generation. Next generation को देने में भी टैक्स चाहिए इनको, सब कुछ में टैक्स. A sum greater than the GDP of Africa. हाँ, तो why is the GDP of Africa so low? There are no billionaires, and what religions are there? Why do they keep fighting amongst themselves? Why is there so many civil wars? Who's killing who? GDP क्यों ऐसे ही low है, magically low है? A new powerful and unaccountable aristocracy is created in front of our eyes. See again, English literature का ज्ञान बांट रहा है. Top rates of tax on income have become lower and less progressive, with the average tax rate on richest falling from 58% in 1980 to 42% more recently in OECD countries. Because 58% जो टैक्स था तब जो इनकम था लोगों का वो ही इतना बढ़ गया है, तो 42% तक कम हो जाने से it does not matter. Across 100 countries the average rate is even lower at 31%. Across 100 countries, yes, because those countries want to get as rich as possible, and you want people to care for environment, you have to bring in a free market and capitalism so that people get richer and then start caring about the environment. We can't afford to care about the environment right now. Rates on tax on capital gains. In most countries, the most important source of income for the top 1% are only 18% on average. Across more than 100 countries, only 3 countries tax income from capital more than income from work. The results have been staggering. Okay, box 1. It doesn't have to be this way when the top rates of US tax was 90%. So yeah, income rate tax was 91%. This commies bring up regularly. Okay, they forget a lot of other factors, and Ben Shapiro had a debate with Cenk Uygur, who was denying the Armenian Holocaust, the Armenian genocide of people by the at the hands of some nice people from the Middle Eastern community. So Cenk Uygur had also brought this up in a debate with Ben Shapiro, and he was saying that's one of the best debates I've seen in my life. He was saying, yeah, USA had 91% tax rates, so and even then we had so much nice growth. Ben Shapiro said, okay, why stop at 91% then? Why don't we just tax people at 100% and have economic growth from here to eternity? If you are saying that 91% tax rate is what was not preventing or not even or what was creating that growth rate, why stop at 91%? Why not 92? Why not 93? Why not 100%? So when USA had 91% tax rate, that was because of a lot of other factors. During Ronald Reagan, USA had the best economic system. One of the most strategic tools to fight inequality and combat polycrisis, taxing the rich. The rich who can move to another country, move to another state. That's who. OXFAM. Okay, it's 10 p.m. already. I'll have to go soon. We'll now get to Shekhar Gupta's analysis of this nonsense. Okay. What are you thinking? What are you thinking about MSME sector of India, and what is the future? The future is very socialist. That's all I can say. Unless the next generation of more further economically right-wing people come to BJP. What's your and if Congress comes to power, we are done. What's your view on Arya Samaj? While on paper they look for conservation of Hinduism, their dilution and mistranslation of our scriptures still give rise to Ishwar Allah. Yeah, you can't agree with everything of anyone. So I agree. I know that Arya Samaj has done some good things. They had joined hands with Savarkar to. Where did the internet connection go away? They had joined hands with Savarkar to do Ghar Wapsi of so many people. Some Arya Samaj guy is the one who has translated this Vishuddh Manusmriti, which I'm reading from my channel, which I'm discussing from my channel. तो कुछ ना कुछ प्रॉब्लम होगा ही. ये फ्लावरी अंग्रेजी बोलने वालों से दूर रहो. Yes, I'm not in support of left, at least in their economic ideas. Development killed Joshimath. Yes, the Western model of development killed Joshimath, and J.S. Deepak has actually been warning about this. But when Joshimath and these things come into the forefront, then people criticize J.S. Deepak that no, ये हिंदू मुसलमान करके क्या होगा, सिर्फ डेवलपमेंट. ट्रेन बनाओ, उस पर पत्थर पड़े, नो प्रॉब्लम. फ्लाईओवर बनाओ, हो गया, गवर्नमेंट का जॉब खत्म. J.S. Deepak has been saying for the last 5 years that yes, development. You are going to make Gurgaon in Himachal Pradesh. Make Gurgaon in Gurgaon. And that is the problem with top-down planning. BJP has not really. Sanjeev Sanyal understands the problems with top-down planning, but obviously the rest of the people in the government don't. Vivek Debroy to some extent does, and no one in the Congress has ever understood the problems with top-down planning. So now we will get to Shekhar Gupta's reaction to this nonsense. He got very pissed off with this. Let me know if you are getting the audio of this, okay?
Show the mirror to the richest. Anti wealth organizations.
Documents carefully.
It's that
Shekhar Gupta starts off with a sixer. He says it's an anti-wealth organization. I love Shekhar Gupta for this. Put eat the rich, tax the rich, even though they pay for everything OXFAM does.
That time of the year when OXFAM comes with its famous annual report, which is presented quite fittingly on day one of Davos, of World Economic Forum, where the richest people in the world gather, the richest, the most influential, and when I say the most influential now, then that includes not just people on the right or people who represent the rich or people who are rich, but also activists, NGOs, anti-wealth organizations, poverty organizations, etc. They are all there.
See these fallacies. Anti-wealth and poverty organizations, as if you need an organization to solve poverty. Create a free market. Let people do business. Let people become rich. Allow people to become rich. That's how poverty goes away. Why do you need an organization for every goddamn thing?
Corruption organizations, Transparency International's chief is there, Oxfam top shots are there, other foundations. So World Economic Forum that Klaus Schwab has now expanded, it's become such a large tent that it also accommodates most of its critics as well. So they are there as much as the multi-billionaires of the world who fly in their private jets.
Yeah, this is an important point that Shekhar Gupta has brought on early on. Okay. In that Oxfam report, if I had the time to read it, the entire thing you would have seen, they were saying that, see, even the rich people agree with this. Even the richest of the rich agree with this, that there should be more taxation. And there, remember, even some like Washington Post, which is run by Jeff Bezos. Washington Post is a very far left organization, right? So these organizations, mysteriously funded by the richest people, they stand for progressive taxation, and they stand for increasing tax percentages, etc., income tax percentages, and they stand for raising the minimum wage. Why is that? That is not a mystery, because the richest of the richest know that they can afford to actually have their wealth decrease a little, but it's the people, it's the business owners and wealth creators right below the richest of the rich whose businesses will get decimated, like what happened during the COVID, which we were discussing half an hour back. Like the $15 minimum wage argument in USA. Washington Post is saying it all day, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, and Amazon. Jeff Bezos can actually afford to pay $15 to everyone, each and everyone. Even though he won't, he will hire a little less people, but he's sponsoring those ideas because he can afford. But not all businesses can afford to do that. Those businesses will have to close down, and that's a huge numbers of businesses whose employees will go bankrupt and without a job. That's why rich people are also gathering at these commie conferences.
They are also there. They can fly in their private jets and talk about climate change in a virtue signaling manner. But similarly, all these activist organizations also sup with the richest in the world, so they can also maybe show the mirror to the richest of the world. So it is there that Oxfam also.
Yes, two comments here. Shekhar Gupta आजकल बड़ा centrist बनने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. Yes, on culture he doesn't agree with BJP, but on economics he agrees with Sanjeev Sanyal. मामा शकुनी, मुझे तो लगता है वेस्टर्नर साले पागल हो गए हैं. Too much privilege gone to their heads, yeah. And these people At the end of the day, who are running these organizations, who are running these think tanks? Somewhere or the other, there are people who don't want to see the rise of third world countries, who don't want to see the rise of second world countries, who don't want to see the rise of countries like India. That's why they are financing these people to say that, see, India is so bad for having 119 billionaires. So screw those 119 billionaires and screw India indirectly.
Also comes up with its global inequality report to make the rich feel guilty, if such a thing is possible. If the rich felt guilty about wealth, they won't be rich to begin with. Like it or not, that's a fact. Second, if it intends to get the poor to hate the rich, you don't have to try very hard. The poor would hate the rich. Who likes inequality, particularly if you are at the lower end of it? And also to get the middle classes, upper middle classes, or the professional classes all riled up. Look, so and Ambani, Adani, they have so much money. How are they smarter than me? I'm so much smarter. My mom told me I'm much nicer looking also.
Oh my God.
Etc. etc. So why do they have so much money? So envy is something which is easy to drive. So we focus for the purpose of this Cut the Clutter, this episode of Cut the Clutter, more on what the OXFAM report says about India. And we've spoken about this in the past. I think it was 2018, very early on. That was episode 83 in 2019. And you know what? It's a coincidence, I promise you, that I was in that episode wearing India sick, because the headline is the same, survival of the richest. Now, Oxfam makes no pretense about not being anti-rich. They actively, ideologically, philosophically, morally. And this is their honest proposition.
Anti-rich means that some people have become rich, now make them poor, and in turn make everyone poor. Shekhar Gupta calls this povertarianism. He coined this term. He is such a big libertarian. Because he says, it's his words, you can't distribute wealth. You can't, at least even Yogi Adityanath says this, wealth है नहीं, distribute क्या करूँ? Distribute करने के लिए तो पहले wealth चाहिए. But you cannot actually distribute wealth if you don't have wealth. What you end up distributing is poverty. So that's povertarianism.
Because they are not hiding it. One thing they are not is hypocrites in this sense. They want to reduce the share of the wealthiest in global wealth and the wealth of the nations. They are not so focused on getting it to the poor, because nobody knows that if you take wealth,
according to me, India is the second world.
From the rich, you can take it to the poor. Second, what do you take from the rich by way of wealth? Because if you start taking it, how much of that wealth will remain? We'll discuss that in a minute. We had done that in some bit of detail in 2019 as well. So I'll share that link also with you. You can take a look at that. But basically, what are they trying to do? When they say survival of the richest, they say, one, the usual story. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poor.
How do poorer get poorer? Do their salaries decrease? Some of them, a lot of them lost their jobs because of the lockdowns, and now their jobs are back because the lockdowns are gone. How do poorer get poorer other than statistical fallacies? Okay, Mama Shakuni is saying, can temple economy compete with India's economy? Perhaps that's why government not freeing. Yeah, now government can't afford to free Hindu temples. Half of the country's free stuff comes from temple economy.
Particularly in India, in this case, this is a supplementary report on India. Right? It's a 20+ page report on India, quite a detailed report with lots of graphics, etc., etc. I will also share a link of this report with you, and I'll also share a link of their entire report. But if you look at the India report, they say survival of the richest. The India story is, of course, they note the fact that India still has the largest number of the poor in the world. India will have the largest number of everything in the world. India is now heading.
Yes, see, Shekhar Gupta knows something about statistical fallacies, which he did not follow when he was talking about the number of which I had debunked in about 6 months back during what was that replacement rate. That's when Shekhar Gupta was himself doing statistical fallacies, because he hates right wing on culture issues, but on economics he is himself right wing, and he is harping on the statistical fallacy created by Oxfam. India will have the most of everything because our population is so high. Remember, let me tell you this story. I had once read an answer on Coda that Saudi Arabia is better for women than India. Why? How? A professor, a white professor a Christian professor from some Ivy League university in USA was writing that answer. His point was that since there are less dowry deaths in Saudi Arabia than in India, less numbers of dowry deaths, therefore Saudi Arabia is better for women than India. That's how statistical fallacies are created.
Poor in the world, India will have the largest number of everything in the world. India is now heading to be the largest population in the world. By the way, as we talk today, China reported for the first time in its history for more than 60 years a decline in population, an annual decline in population. Why did they have annual declines or some declines 60 years back? Why did we say the first ever decline in population? Because 60 years back is when Mao was doing his shenanigans, his Great Leap Forward and other nonsense that was...
Other nonsense. Shekhar Gupta is in warrior mode today. Yes, OXFAM. See, your hero Mao. He was trying to tax the rich. He didn't want any rich people in his country. Why did he cause the population decline of that country? Maybe Oxfam will say that population decline is great because it's good for the environment.
Was killing crores and crores of Chinese. Never mind that even after that, a lot of our compatriots, particularly in the state of West Bengal, shouted slogans like China's chairman, our chairman. Thank God. And that's why we have so many gods and goddesses. Thank God, no one like Mao ever took power in India despite our poverty and problems. But if you read this Oxfam agenda, this takes you somewhere there, because if you were to implement it, you will need a Mao in India. Or maybe you need a Mao plus Kim Jong-un plus some...
Oh, Shekhar Gupta. Shekhar Gupta is so good at trolling when he wants to. See, he is in warrior mode today. You will need a Mao to be so crazy and implement Oxfam's policies in India.
Somebody plus somebody plus somebody. Don't worry, it's not going to happen. The best thing about this Oxfam report says that nobody takes them seriously and nobody follows up on them. Nobody makes any policy quoting them. The worst thing about them is that a lot of the news media, which sees easy headlines, 1% of Indians own
cool
40% of India's wealth, right? They don't ask what wealth is. What do you mean by wealth? The bottom half of India's people, that is the poorest half of India's people, pay 63.4% of India's GST. You don't stop and ask. This does not pass the test of logic and reasonableness, right?
Yes.
This is the line I use often. Never switch off your bullshit detector. That's a line I use in the newsroom, but that's a line everybody should use. But at the same time, these headlines are made because these are easy headlines. And Oxfam's
because Oxfam does not have economists, they have good English literature graduates.
Purpose is served, because what they are doing is headline hunting.
Yes.
Again, this is a bad thing. The good thing is this is forgotten by next day. Also, it becomes then fuel for opposition parties.
Right.
Whoever is in the opposition on the day.
Yeah. Now Rahul Gandhi, Mamta Banerjee, Sitaram, they have gotten some great material to work on. That's all. Oxfam has given them some material to talk about.
When this report comes out, which at this point is Congress and the others, BJP is in power. So they all get their tweets to write and their statements to make. So what is this report saying? This report is saying that, look, the bottom 50% of Indians own only 3% of India's wealth. The top 30% own 90% of India's wealth. And of these 30% also, top 10%, right? Top 10% out of these 30% own more than 80% of India's wealth. Mark the expression I'm using, wealth, because in a while I will explain to you what Oxfam and others mean by wealth. And also I will tell you a very ironical point, that Oxfam defines wealth exactly the same way as Forbes magazine defines wealth. And in fact, in one of the report documents that I'm quoting from, Oxfam actually says that and defends that practice, that they get their wealth data from Forbes. What is Forbes magazine?
Yes, Shekhar Gupta is triggered.
Tagline. Tagline is what a brand uses as a description for what it stands for, right? So Forbes magazine's tagline is the capitalist tool. If you know Malcolm Forbes, founders of Forbes magazine and the Forbes organization, they fly a private aircraft with the words emblazoned on that aircraft. Capitalist tool, right? So you have this revolutionary organization, Oxfam, picking up Forbes magazine's definition of wealth and giving us all gyan based on that. Now, what are they saying? Bottom 50% of Indians own 3% of India's wealth. Top 30% own 90% of this also. Top 10% out of this 30% own more than 80% of India's wealth.
Nice headlines.
Then they say wealthiest 10% of India own 72% of India's wealth. What they go on to do is they further dice this data and say the top 1% of Indians own 40.6% of India's total wealth. Once again, wealth. That is the important thing. As I was reading it, I also read up something else, because I found that this report had a lot of granular data on India's taxation. And it said, for example, that Government of India, Modi government, reduced corporate taxes 2 years ago. Yes. Their idea was to bring in more investment, also to encourage more people to set up new industry, because tax rates were even lower for new industry. They said as a result of that, corporate taxation has gone down, and corporate taxation's share of the national tax kitty has gone down. Indirect taxes have gone up. Indirect taxes are paid irrespective of your income, because...
Okay, I want to point out one other thing. Do you know this phenomenon that when you actually decrease the tax rate, you end up collecting more revenue as taxes. When you increase taxes so much, you actually end up decreasing the actual tax revenue that you have collected. That happens because of a various number of reasons. Either the person who you were dreaming and hoping of taxing, he leaves the country or the state, he takes up his business and leaves. Or if he sees that, okay, I was paying 12% tax, you are not happy, now you want to charge 15%, so I'll take up the entire thing and shove it up in some illegal account in Bahamas or that Swiss bank. But when you instead tell him that no need to pay 12%, pay 10% tax, then he doesn't go through the hassle of having an illegal life, and he doesn't leave the country. Instead, he pays that 10%. That's why when you have lesser tax rates, you end up getting more tax revenue collected. And tax revenue collected is not something OXFAM ever mentioned. They only talked about the actual rates demanded by governments from billionaires and rich people. Okay. पता नहीं शेखर गुप्ता लेफ्टिस्टों को मुंह कैसे दिखाएंगे इस वीडियो के बाद. Yes, leftists, if they forgot that Shekhar Gupta hates leftist economics, that's their fault. Shekhar Gupta has been great friends with Sanjeev Sanyal. You should see his interviews with Sanjeev Sanyal. It's like two long lost brothers hanging out. That's how I first saw Sanjeev Sanyal. I first heard of Sanjeev Sanyal from a libertarian group, and I saw his interview with Shekhar Gupta. Artha was always in our hands. Yes. সপ্তর্ষি অধিকারী দাদা শেখর স্যার তো পুরো রোস্টিং মুডে আছে দেখছি. ইয়েস, জেসাই দীপকও ফেল করে যাবে গো. भांजे गेट सम स्लीप विल हेल्प योर हीलिंग. यस शेखर गुप्ता इतना मज़ा दे रहे हैं आज तो इसके बाद ही स्लीप करना है. ओके, सो लेट्स कंटिन्यू.
You pay taxes on whatever you consume. So poor also consume food, milk, meat, chicken, dals, etc., etc. They pay GST on that, just as the rich pay GST on that. And similarly, fuel is consumed by all. So everybody pays taxes on fuel as well. Now, when I saw the data, it sort of jumped out at me, because one of the data points I saw there that said, because they have a big recommendation about not just tweaking GST, but completely rewriting GST. Because Rahul Gandhi, see his tweet based on this OXFAM report, he again called it Gabbar Singh tax. His logic is that this tax is helping the rich, hurting the poor. Oxfam says something similar, but...
Yes, Rahul Gandhi knows more about economics than Sanjeev Sanyal. Abhijit Banerjee, who has never worked a day in his life for a salary, he knows more economics than Sanjeev Sanyal.
Even more radically. Their solutions are even more radical. In fact, if I interpret them sort of a little bit liberally, they would be like, have people pay GST according to their income, or raise GST rates on what is defined as luxury item a lot more. Thereby lies a tricky little fact, but I will come to that in just a bit. Now, when I was reading this, I noticed that they also said some really incredible things. They said, for example, the bottom 50% of India's population, or India's population says 140 crores, bottom 50% is 70 crores. So they said bottom 50% of India's people spend 6.7% of their income on select food and non-food items. 6.7% of their income, whereas the middle 40% spend only 3.3% and top 10% spend only 0.4%. Now that the richer you are, the less the tax you are paid as a percentage of your income. It is not as if the absolute amount of tax you are paying is lower. Absolute amount of tax you are paying can be much higher. But at the lower end, somebody could be earning 20,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees a month, right? 10,000 rupees a month. 6.7% of that, which is 670 rupees, you pay towards select food and non-food items, but it's only 670 rupees. It hurts you because it's 6.7% of your overall income. At the same time, somebody who's earning a crore of rupees, right? Somebody who's earning a crore of rupees is paying 0.4%. Now, 0.4% of a crore of rupees is 40,000 rupees. So the person individually is paying several tens of times more tax than the person at the lower end, but it's a lower percentage of their income, which is perfectly reasonable. What moral point is made out of this? I don't know, but I'm not the one to whom that question should be asked. I think this is nonsensical. The whole argument is nonsensical. That's my view, so I must qualify that. That's my opinion. You can toss it or you can accept it. It's up to you.
Nice.
But I don't see how this percentage of tax paid, indirect tax paid, as a percentage of anybody's income is of any logic, unless it is to make the point that the poor are having to pay too much tax for their essential goods. Now, when I looked at
you know how to remedy that situation? Stop having taxes. Stop demanding free stuff and stop having taxes.
From that point of view, I thought that maybe OXFAM has a point here. So let's check some data. But before I could check the data, so this morning when I was scrolling through all the information on OXFAM report, I was just basically hitting OXFAM and searching. I found a bunch of tweets, a tweet thread from Diva Jain. Please check out her handle, Diva Jain 2.
Okay, before that let me just reply to this. साला इतने सारे चैलेंज देख के अब तो सुपर पावर बनने से डर लगता है. यस ये साला चैलेंज खत्म काहे नहीं होता रे.
She's written a thread. I will not read the entire thread to you, but I will read maybe a couple because these make so much sense. And when I read those tweets, they sounded too good to be true from my point of view because I'm an OXFAM skeptic. I must make that very clear.
Good.
So what I did was I read her tweets and then I checked the data myself. I checked the report and I checked the data and I did the quiet mental math
Nice.
as well, and then also math on my phone calculator. And it's very simple. And this tells you a fact that will be the conclusion of this part of this Kapta clutter. It will be a tough fact, tough conclusion for us journalists. So she says in her first tweet, it seems likely that there will be a hullabaloo over OXFAM's reported claim that bottom 50% of India pay 64.3% of GST. A cursory analysis of OXFAM's, and she's writing this, atrociously researched report reveals clever wordplay and account.
Clever wordplay because yes, they are just good English literature graduates. But Diva Jain, see, how does she's from Kolkata? Holy cow, she is maybe as pissed off with commies as I am. Holistic business experience, including actuarial consulting. Is this the same person? Yeah, this is the same person. Man, someone to be proud of finally, other than Sanjeev Sanyal and Vivek Debroy. Entrepreneurship, and even Harsh Madhusudan is actually from Kolkata. These people know what destroyed West Bengal and Kolkata. That's why they are hardcore capitalists and free market. Not as free as I would like it to be, but anyway. See, she actually does business. She actually runs a company. That's why she knows this stuff better than OXFAM, who have never worked for a salary for their entire lives. They are dependent on donations and donations. Their life runs on donations.
Counting shenanigans that will make a Goldman banker blush, right? And then she says, first examine the above claim mathematically. OXFAM says that the bottom 50% of Indians pay 6.7% of their income as GST. That's what I was talking to you about just now. It is being reported that this translates to 64.3% of all GST revenue, something OXFAM also highlights as indicative inference. Please see the chart on your screen as well. This is from the OXFAM report. If you see this chart and then you make calculations, if your mental math is good, I'm sure everybody's mental math is better than mine. You can figure it out yourself, or you can take out a calculator and pick it up from there. Now, if its average monthly GST revenue in financial year 2022 was 1,23,000 crores, or say 1,23,500 something crores. If you take that, then 64.3% of that, and also Diva Jain points this out, that is 79,465 crores. That is, if that is equal to 6.7% of the total monthly income of the bottom 50% of Indians, then if you know basic arithmetic, you can easily calculate the average income of the bottom 50% of the Indian people. If you do that calculation, so then how do you do the multiplication? Total population of India 140 crores. So you take 79,465 crores, that is 64.3% of all of India's GST collection, monthly average collection, and divided by 6.7 and divided by 70. So what do you get? You get a monthly income of 16,943 for 50% of Indians at the lower level. That means 50% of the poorest Indians get an average monthly income of 16,943. Now multiply that by 12 and you know what the annual income is. So annual income of the poorest 50% Indians, that is 2,03,322 in the last 50%. You might think, all right, that's not very rich. These are poor people. These are poorer Indians. साल में 2 लाख है तो क्या बड़ी बात है? But there is a problem there. And problem there is, and I checked out these calculations. I've done these calculations myself, not just mentally. You can't trust my mental calculations, but I've done it on a calculator, and these calculations that Diva made are right. The absurdity lies in the fact that Indian GDP, per capita GDP at current prices is 1,72,903. So overall 140 crore Indians per capita GDP is 1,72,913. So you would logically believe that people in the higher 50%, in the higher income half of the Indian population will have much more than this. In this case, by this calculation, for people in the lower half of Indian income levels, lower 50% have a per capita income of 2,03,000, while the average GDP, per capita GDP of India's entire population is 1,72,900. ये कैसे हो सकता है? How can this happen? How can the poorest 50% have an average income level higher than the total populations,
Bah.
which includes the 50 of the richer half.
Bah.
This is simply illogical. But the fact is, a lot of these reports are written with one presumption in mind. They are written with one objective of getting the headlines. Headlines are done by journalists. And these reports are written with the presumption that journalists, one, will not look at any data.
Yes.
Because journalists, one, they see an easy headline, particularly when it comes to knocking
Yes.
the rich. They are quite happy to dump their skepticism.
Yes.
Or maybe they believe that us journalists, math is so poor that we will not figure it.
Yes, and Shekhar Gupta is probably the only journalist who understands some economics and basic arithmetic. Some comments have come. This takla reminds me of another takla. Who? Abhijit. And Saptashi Adhikari says Kolkata bashi হিসেবে গর্ব হচ্ছে এই দিব্যা জৈন, হর্ষ মধুসূদন, দিব্যা জৈন, হর্ষ মধুসূদন, সঞ্জীব সান্যাল, বিবেক দেবরা, সবই তো কলকাতা. As a bunny, I am proud of Shekhar Gupta today. Yes. Oh, so you didn't know Shekhar Gupta was this much further right economically. You should see his interviews with Sanjeev Sanyal. Saurabh Mukherjee, yes. I keep forgetting about Saurabh Mukherjee. Saurabh Mukherjee is not very political and not very aggressive, but he's an absolute genius as well on actual real life practical economics and basically free market economics.
It out. And that's why if you just go and Google OXFAM report India, you will find headline after headline
Only
after
headlines.
headline quoting these
Cool
projections
headlines.
made by OXFAM without anybody having checked out the data. Because if you apply the test of data, you know what this report is. It is farcical. Now also, when you further look at this data on how the bottom 50% pay 64.3% of India's GST or 6.7% of their incomes on GST, on selected items. What are these items? First of all this data has been picked by OXFAM from the 2011-12 NSSO survey, National Sample Survey Organization, which must be dated, but nevertheless,
Yeah.
what are the items they've picked up? Just think for a moment. Pulses, milk, cereals, edible oil, meat, fine. Dry fruits? Bottom 50% of Indians spend a lot of money on dry fruits.
देखो statistical fallacy कैसे बनाते हैं. This is a textbook masterclass on how to create statistical fallacies.
Maybe they do. Now, if somebody could say, give them cake if they don't have bread, right? Then you can also say the poor buy dry fruits. So dry fruits are included. Beverages, packaged processed foods. So I don't know how many packaged processed foods the poor buy or how much money they spend on it. Then washing powder, fridge, motorcycle, scooter, right? This is the bottom 50% of India. Fridge, motorcycle, scooter, mobile.
This is called colonial presumptions in the research methodology of surveys. This is why my name of my video is commie colonization. This is the modern day colonization because of their colonial assumptions. Did I close the video? What the hell? अरे मेरा हाथ लग गया.
करी में जब पुलिस पकड़ते हैं,
I'll fast forward to that part. हाँ ठीक है.
Dry fruits are included. Beverages, packaged processed foods. So I don't know. Fridge, motorcycle, scooter, right? This is the bottom 50%.
Bottom
of India.
50%.
Fridge, motorcycle, scooter, mobile phone, pan and tobacco. Pan and tobacco. Why should you plead for lower tax on pan and tobacco? I don't know. And then this adds AC, air conditioner, cooler, washing machine,
वाह, वाह, वाह.
laptop,
सब कुछ bottom
jewelry
50%
and
को दे दिया.
ornaments. Now, again, how logical that is, I leave to you. But even if the poor buy some of these things, how often would they buy an air conditioner or a cooler or a laptop or a motorcycle, etc., etc. So the base is distorted. And now it does look ugly when Oxfam says that because Modi government reduced corporate tax rates, corporate tax collections have come down. They did come down in the first year, and that was followed by the pandemic year. But our economy editor, TCA Sharad Raghavan, he's now pulled out data for me. That tells us that in 2020-21, corporate tax had grown very little, 0.84%, which was disappointing, but that was also the pandemic year. Next year, it grew 24.12%. 24.12% is not at all bad. Of course, it was on top of a bad economic year of the lockdown year. 22-23, that is this year, it's estimated to be 9.6% growth. So
This is collected final actual revenue कितना collect हुआ corporate tax से या the corporate tax rate?
it's not as if corporate tax has gone down. It's recovered very nicely and very neatly.
This seems like actual revenue collected.
Again, the share of corporate tax in total tax, 2019-20, before the cuts came, it was 27.7%. 2020-21, it became 22.6%. So it came down because of the cuts. Oxfam's right. 2021-22, it became 25.2%. So it's begun to rise while India's indirect taxes are also rising. 2022-23, it's back to the old level, which is 26% plus. The budget will come out and we will see the final figure. So once again, you can pick up a fact selectively and use 1 year as a reference and extrapolate it for the next 3 years without bothering for the fact that the next 3 years data is available and that data is telling you a different story. And also, I kept on telling you that please underline the word I'm using again and again, wealth. there is a difference between wealth and income.
Yes.
So Mukesh Ambani can have a wealth of so many billions of dollars, so many trillions of dollars, whatever. But that is not Mukesh Ambani's income or Gautam Adani's income. The income is maybe whatever salary they are paid in a year, whatever they earn on dividends, or whatever they might earn on their other investments, or whatever capital gains they might earn on any shares they may have sold, their own companies or other companies, or any other assets they have sold, they might have sold. That is income. Wealth is not income. If somebody inherited a house from their grandparents, right, that house may have been worth 1 crore rupees 30 years back, it might be today 100 crore rupees. So your wealth then is 100 crores. But your income will be the rent you might earn on that house. That is the distinction these reports do not make. So what they do is they get the wealth calculation made by Forbes magazine, which is all your stocks and shares, all your unrealized capital gains. And what they are recommending in their report is that tax everything. So tax income at a much higher level. In fact, in their global report, they are saying tax income at something like 75% for the richest, and for others, average of at least 60%. By the way, in India, the top tax level is already 43.6%, and you don't even have to be particularly rich for that. Just over 10 lakhs, and you pay that kind of tax. Now, these guys want you to pay 60%, and if you're really rich, then 75%. Then they want wealth tax. Wealth tax on whatever wealth you have right now. At some point, your wealth will be valued. Just pay 2.5% of that or 2% of that, and if you do that, then you can solve all of India's problems. Now, what happens? Suppose you go and value Mukesh Ambani's wealth or Gautam Adani's wealth and say, hello uncle, आपका तो इतना wealth है ना, तो 2% हमको दे दो.
Shekhar Gupta trolling.
Mukesh Ambani or Gautam Adani does not have 2% equivalent of their wealth sitting in their bank account. So what will they do? They'll go and sell their shares. They sell their shares to realize that money to pay you 2% of their wealth. Now, if they have to sell a number of their shares, that will account for 2% of the value of their wealth now to pay as tax that OXFAM now demands. Word will spread that Mukesh Ambani is selling his stock. Gautam Adani is selling his stock. Gautam Adani is selling his shares because he has to pay tax. Can you imagine? Mukesh Ambani is selling his shares because he has to pay tax. The moment that happens, there will be so many shares in the market that the share price will collapse. Share price will collapse, and what wealth they have will also collapse. And what wealth all their other shareholders have will also collapse.
Which includes everyone who has shares of Adani and Reliance. Wait, let me reply some comments. Revenue collection. Oh, the Agdin Harsh sir lecture analysis corona. Yeah, and Harsh Madhusudan is the first person to actually destroy Dr. Shashi Tharoor in a debate. He destroyed him harder than Desai Deepak. What do you think about global bears talking about global economic bubble? Please make a video on that. I think there's no point predicting these things, but if I think if everyone is predicting a bubble burst, then it might not happen. That's why it's getting delayed so much. So everyone is prepared. तो कभी ना कभी burst तो होना ही है. शेखर सर तो पूरा झामा. Yes. टकला धीरे बोल हार्ट अटैक आएगा. टाइम खराब चल रहा है. Or just 3 minutes left. After that, we'll go home.
This idea or ideas like this, I don't know how to describe them. The best way to describe them is to use rude expressions, which are not advisable on a family channel. But you know,
yes, what I said about half an hour back about commies. That's what Shekhar Gupta is avoiding.
Look at the initials B and S. BS, you know what that stands for? Or something that Vidya Balan made us familiar with in that film Ishqiya. I will not use the first part of that word, but the second part seems kosher enough. That is sulfate, because that is what is being made out of all of us. And that's why you have to question all of us in the media, everybody almost, who's picked up these easy headlines, because easy headlines are nice. Now, before I let you go, in this report, there is a quote from Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Rousseau, as you know, was a philosopher, French philosopher, also somebody who provided intellectual fuel for the French Revolution. So the quote used by OXFAM goes, when the people have nothing more to eat, they will eat the rich. And then the report goes on to say, sentiment behind eat the rich resonates in the case of India. Now,
yes, sentiment behind that resonates in India. That's why more and more people are investing in the share market. OXFAM doesn't even know how Indians think like, or what the modern Indian thinks like. Can you see that? Okay, one interesting comment has come. That I am someone who has followed Gupta sir despite his biased views on communal issues, but I always supported his economical views. This episode was true hard-hitting journalism, and yes, this is more sad, because this same person who is destroying the statistical fallacies created by OXFAM was himself creating so many statistical fallacies while discussing replacement rate, which I had to debunk in my video. If you go to my playlist called video essays English / English, you'll see I have made a video on Shekhar Gupta, even though I like him so much.
Now, I checked out a little bit more on Rousseau and the French Revolution. And my colleague Priyanjali Mitra, she pulled out this line from the British Library intro to the Social Contract by Rousseau. And the line is, and this is the British Library's intro, their introduction to the Social Contract by Rousseau. They say, Rousseau's theories of sovereignty and law had a direct influence on French revolutionaries and were blamed for some of the worst excesses of the terror. Reign of Terror, some of the worst excesses of the terror. Terror is with the capital T. For Reign of Terror, some of the worst excesses of the terror in France. Now, I'm not surprised that Oxfam is quoting it. I went down to the footnote for this Eat the Rich citation. This footnote, the citation is actually to an article by Claire Rich. Claire Rich from a publication called The Vanderbilt Hustler. When I clicked on that link, this is an article by a first-year college student. No problem with a first-year college student. But in this article, it's a 5-para article. She's only explaining why she started to call her new column Eat the Rich. So in conclusion, you can say that while the intention and the pretense is to make a great moral and intellectual flourish, this is nothing but one more ideologically driven exercise, never mind the facts, with the presumption that media will lap it up, which is exactly what happened. Now, in conclusion, what I will do is I will just share with you a chart from this India report.
I have no problem with ideologically driven conclusions. Just don't stray from the facts.
On Oxfam, that tells you that if you tax Ambani and Adani at their rates, right? They list a bunch of multi-billionaires in the world, but Ambani and Adani are there. And if you can tax them in a certain way, tax them not just for their income, of course, tax them at a high rate for their income, but also tax them for their dividends and tax them for their unrealized capital gains.
Yeah, taxing unrealized gains is probably the craziest idea I've ever heard. See, you buy a company's share today at 3 rupees. It increases to 5 rupees today, and you know it might go down to 0 rupees day after tomorrow or 1 rupee day after tomorrow. But you are supposed to pay on a tax for that share price going from 3 rupees to 4 rupees or 5 rupees just in 2 days. That's unrealized capital gains tax. Unrealized. You haven't even realized that gain in real life, and you're supposed to pay a tax on that. That's what these commies are demanding.
That is the tricky thing. Oxfam wants governments to tax people for their unrealized capital gains. You know what will happen as a result? Either people will start selling that if I have to pay tax on unrealized capital gain, then I might as well realize my capital gain and spend that money. Why should I keep that capital gain unrealized? Or people might migrate from one country to the other, and tax havens will again have a wonderful time.
Yes, see all the points I had mentioned. This is what Abhijit Banerjee doesn't understand because he does not live in the real world. He has never stepped outside the cozy campus situation. Okay, khatam ho gaya. So, good night, guys. This was a fun experience. And every time Oxfam tries to give these commie colonial ideas to our commies, we will push back on them. And remember to use these arguments while debating economic commies. Okay? Culture, though, we can debate them easily because of Deepak. But even in the right wing, there are a lot of people who are socialist when it comes to economics. We need to push back hard on them. Okay? Good night.